Hey everyone, it is Tim back with Robot Butt Recommends. It is Thursday. We are very close to the weekend. And as far as we go in Ohio, our governor has COVID now. And just after we found out that, according to its own reporting, bars are by far the biggest spreader of the virus, even over daycares, churches, etc. So, with that in mind, and my kind of sixth sense of humor, I thought it would be fun to recommend a bar crawl movie, specifically The World's End, which kind of ties into this in a number of ways. But it is the final film in the Cornetto trilogy that Sean Penn, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright made, starting with Shaun of the Dead and then Hot Fuzz. And I feel it's also become the overlooked film of that trilogy. Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, there's a lot of love for it, and they're fantastic movies. I especially love Shaun of the Dead. But World's End tends to get kind of shrugged off and left off. And I feel part of that might be because there was quite a gap between Hot Fuzz and World's End, like 6 or 7 years between the movies, where Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz were a little bit closer together, so people associated them together much more closely, where World's End is just kind of left off on its own. But in some ways, I think World's End is a stronger movie than Hot Fuzz. I would not personally put it over Shaun of the Dead, but I do think it is better than Hot Fuzz, which could get me in some hot water with some people. But it takes the kind of concept of Shaun of the Dead, like his initial character of slacker not living up, but as opposed to him growing up, as we see Shaun do in Shaun of the Dead, they take an even more caricatured version of that starting character and just went with, what if he never grew up? And that is the main character of World's End. He is someone who is very much stuck living in the past, trying to relive glory days that have since passed him by. His friends, his childhood friends, have all grown beyond him. And so the movie takes place with him getting them all together to finish a bar crawl that they never completed when in their youth. And it's literally retracing your steps. And it's a great concept and premise if it was just going to be a, character study kind of thing, but because this is Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg we're talking about, halfway through you get a nice sci-fi bent thrown in as well, where it essentially becomes an adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which maybe I would say is a spoiler if the marketing for this movie hadn't gone above and beyond ruining that twist on the onset. But it is a great twist, even if you kind of know that it's coming, and it really does help center the movie because Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of the more potent metaphors in sci-fi. There's a reason that it has been remade and redone and kind of played around with so many times, and this is no exception. The way that they use it for kind of a stand-in for how when you try to go home again, you can feel out of place, and there's kind of an aspect of alienness to it. They use that and get a lot of mileage out of it. And just like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers trope, there are a number of different interpretations that you could take away from the way they utilize that concept within the story. Excuse me. So it's a great piece of sci-fi writing, and of course it's hilarious. Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright are at the top of their game. Edgar Wright in particular, he's much more comfortable at this point with staging a lot of kinetic, fun action sequences. This is coming after he did Scott Pilgrim versus the World, so he's gotten more experience under his belt. And I talked about last week with how a lot of studio comedies tend to just point the camera at the actors, let them riff, and it becomes just glorified improv sessions. World Ends and all of Edgar Wright's stuff is kind of the antithesis of that. It is so painstakingly constructed, and it's great because there are the jokes and the banter of the characters themselves and the dialogue, but some of the best jokes and the biggest laughs come simply from a quick cut or the way the camera pans over and catches something else. Edgar Wright is very, very good at including little visual cues and gags that are ostensibly throwaway because they're not a part of the actual action or the dialogue or anything, but are so much funnier than what passes for straight up jokes in a lot of other comedies. So it's great. Like I said, I think it's kind of the unsung gem of the Cornetto trilogy that he did with Pegg and Frost. And especially now for myself, getting older and getting closer to the point the characters are in the movie, where they're looking back, seeing where they are now compared to what they thought they would be in their younger days, there is a bit more resonance than even the first time I watched this. And again, the way that you can kind of view the movie and the theme in different ways, watching it now, even though I still have my, my general reading of what's being done, my allegiances and thoughts about things have shifted a little bit from the last time I watched it. So if you haven't seen it, you should definitely do that because it is very funny. It's a great sci-fi, little story. If you have seen it, but it's been a while, I definitely recommend going back and revisiting it because, again, as the years have gone by, different things are going to stick out. You're going to appreciate different elements that you may not have, not necessarily not appreciated before, but it'll have a little bit more weight to it than it may have previously. So that is my pick for this weekend. It is not available on any of the streaming services like Netflix or anything, at least I don't think. I'm actually going to double check that because I forgot to check that beforehand. But it is available to rent on Amazon, YouTube, all those other video on-demand things, iTunes. So you can always rent it through that. Let's see what the streaming situation is. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it will just be renting, but that's okay. It is definitely worth it. Like I said, very funny. We're talking about a lot of talented, Edgar Wright is a super talented filmmaker. I love all of his stuff. So that is definitely what I think you should check out this weekend. And again, I mentioned Lucidity if you're more into games on Tuesday, so you can grab that as well. And hopefully you will enjoy the weekend, whatever you have planned or not planned going on. We will be back here on Tuesday with some more recommendations. So as always, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.